Good day, everyone. I've been reading Wuthering Heights by Emile Bronte in Spanish, and it translates quite well into that language. What I'm going to read first the English original and then the Spanish, a passage which I think is central to this book. It talks about the love that Cathy has for Heathcliff, the way she feels it. She's talking to Nellie, and she's conflicted about marrying Linton, but she has come to terms that she has to do it. And Nellie's asking her about, well, what about Heathcliff? Your love for Heathcliff, how is that different from the one for Linton? This is very brief, but very telling. Cathy. My love for Heathcliff resembles the eternal rocks beneath, a source of little visible delight but necessary. I am Heathcliff. He's always in my mind, not as a pleasure, any more than I am always a pleasure to myself, but as my own being. So don't talk of our separation again. The Spanish version, which is Cumbres Borrascosas, takes some liberty with the translation, but I think in spirit it's true. Pero mi amor a Heathcliff se asemeja a las rocas, eternas rocas que están profundas. Yo soy él. Él está siempre, permanentemente en mi pensamiento, y no como una cosa agradable. De igual forma que yo no soy siempre agradable para mí misma, sino como propio ser. Aliento en mi aliento y vibra en mis vibraciones. Es como si mi sangre formara la sangre de él. ¿Comprenderás, Elena, que es imposible hablar de que podamos separarnos? Cathy with Heathcliff, Heathcliff with Cathy. I may have said this in my introductory video, but they are forces of nature. Their love for each other takes no prisoners. They can be together. Everyone else is collateral damage. When I looked through my library, many of these books, films, poems, are in many ways the children of this book. There's stories like this. And when I read Happiness in Crime by Jules Barbey de Aurevilly, 19th century writer, French writer, there are two characters in this story who declare, and her partner, Vigny, they call him Vigny. I imagined them as Heathcliff and Cathy. I'm going to read to you part of this. Again, the story is Happiness in Crime by Jules Barbey de Aurevilly, and I have it here in great short French novels by F.W. Dupee, edited by F.W. Dupee. In our story, you have a man and a doctor. They're at a zoo. And the doctor recognizes a couple that approaches a cage where there's a black panther. The couple in their 40s, but they are something out of Greek mythology. extremely attractive, extremely confident, and oblivious to the crowd that's surrounding him they have caught their attention. But especially the woman has caught her attention. And when I read this, I thought of Kathy. In fact, this woman attracted more attention than the man who accompanied her and held it longer. She was as tall as he was, her head was nearly on level with his, and as she was dressed entirely in black, she made one think of the black Isis of the Egyptian Museum by her shape, her mysterious pride, and her strength. For strange to say, in this handsome couple, it was the woman who had the muscles and the man who possessed the nerves. The doctor knew this couple about 20 years earlier in the town that he practiced in. Now, he was a doctor to many of the nobility there. And one of the reasons he was so successful, he was very discreet about their private lives. He was also a very good doctor. The young couple approaches the cage where there's a black panther, and the woman gets very close to this cage, and she has a staring match with the black panther until the black panther blinks. But that's not where it ends. The woman approached the place even closer. Without saying a word, she undid the 12 buttons of the glove, which fitted so closely her magnificent arm. She took off the glove, and daringly putting her hand between the bars of the cage, flicked the panther's muzzle with it. The panther made but one movement, and snapped its teeth like lightning. A cry went up from the little group around. We thought her hand must be bitten off at the wrist, but it was only the glove. The panther had swallowed it. The beast, insulted, had opened its eyes to their full size, and its nostrils quivered with anger. At that point, the doctor and his friend, who's narrating the story, sees the woman's eyes. And Jules Barbey describes it this way: those eyes were and told a whole poem. The couple then walks away, the couple, and the crowd is just in awe of them. The doctor knew them, and they knew the doctor, but they completely ignore him. They pass him by, as if he was just a breath of air. And now we learn who they were, but who she was. I'll reveal some parts about this story, but not everything. Briefly, when the doctor practiced in this small town, which had many nobility, there was a fencing school run by this elderly gentleman who had one daughter who by age 10 could beat any man in the vicinity, including her father. She was that good at fencing. By the time she was 17, 18, she was running the school. Her father passes away, her mother passes away. All these men come to fence with her. She defeats all of them. Little is known about her. When she goes around town, she has usually a blue veil, so you can't see her face. She goes to Mass every Sunday with that blue veil. She doesn't associate with anybody in the town. Much intrigue is about her. Now, some of the men have seen her, because when she does fence, she wears a mask. But when she does take it, briefly, they see her, and she is unamazingly beautiful. But she's very proud, and she doesn't flirt with any of the men. Now, at one point, a nobleman shows up. Men engaged to a woman named Delphine, an aristocrat in the town. And he comes every day and fences with her, with Haute Claire. Oh yeah, whose name comes from the romance of Roland, from Oliver, who had a sword named Haute Claire. That's what she's named after. He cannot best her. He marries his beloved. He continues to come in the afternoons. This goes on until one day, Claire disappears from the town. She's gone. Leaves no trace, no note, nothing. The town is a gossip, of course, and the men are pretty upset because they think she ran off with somebody. And then people make up stories they saw her in Paris. It's not true, but they make up all these stories. Now this nobleman I mentioned, he's happily married, by all appearances. And people actually speak of him quite well, how devoted he is to his wife, a woman named Delphine. They live on an estate outside of the town. And that's where the doctor enters. He knew the man's family, the Comte's family, Savigny's family. And at one point he's called to treat his wife. Savigny's wife is very ill, Delphine. And when he shows up, Delphine's a very beautiful woman. And he's treating her. She calls for the maid, her personal maid. And when the personal maid shows up, in servant gown, her corkscrew curls, the doctor recognizes this maid, who goes by Eulalie. It's not Eulalie. It's Haute Claire. But Haute Claire makes nothing. She doesn't respond to the doctor's reaction. And Savigny is watching. He's nervous how the doctor's going to react, but the doctor's discreet. So this is where she disappeared to. And as the days and weeks and months pass by, there's no scandal. But remember, no one really saw her. The women only saw her in the veil. The men who fenced with her briefly saw her in the mass, but whenever men come over to the mansion, she's not there to greet them. But what's going on here? Some of your assumptions you're thinking are correct, but it's much more complicated than that. That's one thing about the French writers. They really get into the people's heads, and they really get to the human nature, the heart of things, in ways that make you uncomfortable. But I think they're real. They're sincere. Something Emily Bronte understood when she wrote Wuthering Heights with Heathcliff and Cathy. The doctor begins to investigate what's happening here. He admits, I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm really curious. What's happening here? No one seems to be scandalized by this. No one seems to know anything. And I'm not going to reveal anything. My suspicions. So one night he goes to the residence, and he goes to a chateau towards the back of the mansion, and he hears some strange sound like iron on iron. And what does he see in the middle of the night? But Haute Claire and Savigny fencing. And this is what they do every night. And when they stop, they lean upon the balcony, and the doctor notices they're conversing. Not about what, he doesn't know. But one thing is quite evident. At one point they stop talking, and they embrace, and they kiss. And like it's described in the book, the kiss lasts more than 60 pulses of the heart. And then they go back into the balcony. Curtains are drawn. Does the wife know? Does the wife not know? The wife is ill. She's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. That's all I will say, except for this. Toward the end of the novel, I keep calling it a novel, but it's a novella, the doctor asks Haute Claire a question. But before this, though, we get into his head. And he talks about a certain kind of love that's so passionate and so furious that no offspring will come of it. Why? The fire which devours, consumes, and does not produce. One day I said to Haute-Claire, "Are you not sorry not to have any children?" Her response is interesting. "I don't want any." "I should love Sir Lone," said Vigny, "less. Children are good only for women who are unhappy." Jules Barbey was one of the writers from the late 19th century who's considered part of the school of the Decadence school. Maupassant is one of those, for example. Huysmans is another. Oscar Wilde from the British, Isles is another. And these are some of the early writers that I think really got into psychological storytelling, something that would become the norm in the early 20th century. But the French were already there. They were way ahead of the time in their storytelling. This collection here, Great French Short Novels, is edited by F.W. Dupee. And it has remarkable stories that I read when I was 18 and 19. Writers who are the children of Emile Bronte. Because I came to them because of her. Stendhal, Flaubert, Zola. They're all in here. I got this volume because I saw these writers, but I also saw the editor, Dupee. Dupee was a fine literary critic. He was a contemporary of Edmund Wilson and Mary McCarthy. Wilson is a very important writer to me. And I came across Dupee, who wrote only a few books, but he was good on Henry James, very good on Nabokov and Flaubert. This story can also be found in The Decadent Reader, which collects writings from France from the late 1800s, which I recommend you get. I used to have a copy, but I gave it away to an acquaintance of mine, and he's been a fan of those writers ever since, including Jules Barbey. I wanted to share that with you, and the importance, again, what a book can do to someone. In a way, you can say that much of this library we see behind you is because of Emile Bronte. That movie poster by there is Manon of the Spring, which I saw in 1987, shortly after reading Wuthering Heights. A beautiful film, and also one of the legacies of Bronte. Thank you for your